All right, Chris.
This meeting is being recorded.
All right. Good morning, everybody. Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
Welcome to the weekly Shabbat. All right, let's get this started. Most High Abba Yahuah, we thank you for yet another gathering of coming to dine with you at your spiritual table. We ask that the meal that has been prepared is beneficial to everyone that is on this call, as well as those that will listen to the replay. Most High Abba Yahuah, we continue to ask for more spiritual insight of your word that leads those that don't know you out of this world into the place of safety where you and your truth can be found. Most High Abba Yahuah, we thank you, the only true and living Elohim that can deliver us, whose word is true, whose spirit operates in spirit and in truth. For those that know you and your son Yahusha, we ask that these things be so in Yahusha's name.
Yes.
It is so.
It's so.
Yes, it is. Very good. Again, welcome and Shabbat Shalom, everyone. We're going to get the ball rolling with today's lesson. And today's lesson, we're going to be talking about the signs that follow all true believers. This lesson we've done this lesson several times over the years. This will be the first time it's actually been recorded. And this lesson was initially done by our brother Jay, who is no longer here with us in the natural. And I've updated and made some adjustments to it as well over the years. So that's what we'll be going over today as well. All right.
Okay.
So having said that, all right, so we're going to get started. The signs that follow all true believers. Now, we've seen and we've heard these scriptures on several occasions throughout different religions and different traditions of men, throughout the scriptures throughout different teachings. And this lesson is something that, like others, that we want people to understand and let it resonate within them so that they can be the ultimate deciding factor of what the outcome is of the signs and what the Most High is telling us, and not just man or anyone else just telling them from their perspective. So we're going to go over from a contextual perspective what these scriptures are saying to us. And then we'll also understand the manifestations thereof. All right. So we'll be discussing how does one identify true believers of the Bible from unbelievers. 2, have you properly understood these signs that follow all true believers? 3, the proper interpretation of the signs that follow all believers. Number 4, properly applying the revealed truths of the signs. And then finally, number 5, the conclusion of the matter. All right. So, signs that follow all true believers. 1, how are we to identify true believers of the Bible from unbelievers? How does one clearly identify and differentiate a true believer typified as being a part of the barley or the wheat, which is the Creator's true born-again children of the Spirit, or those typified as part of the tares, Satan's children trying to pass themselves off as barley and wheat? Within the scope of our teachings, we have responded to a question of this caliber with the following biblical answers. Number 1, due to the abomination of desolation, which has been in place for the entirety of the New Testament era, we will find all the tares operating within the camp and in the midst of physical worship places, all high places or spiritual whorehouses, all made with the hands of men. They are bound to being a part of nothing but the mystery, but being mystery Babylon the Great, the worldwide system of man-made religion, economics, education, and politics. As a result of the abomination, the true believers will have come out of her to go without the camp and enter the wilderness, the place of safety, to bear the reproach of our one true creator. Due to their obedience of our creator, Yahuah will properly nurture and feed them with his real spiritual truth that he keeps hidden from all in mystery Babylon that refuse to come out of her.
Yes.
Is that
Excuse
making
me one
sense
sec,
so
Z.
far? Sure. So for everyone else, is that making
Can
sense
you-
so far?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, good.
Very good. Very good. Yes.
All right.
Z, excuse me one sec. Could you expand your screen for the playback?
It's expanded. It's maximized now.
Oh, it is. Okay. Maybe it's a different browser I'm using for Zoom. Okay.
Mhm.
Go ahead. Sorry about that.
No problem. Number two, the true believers exist as little sanctuaries in groups of one along with the Holy Spirit that are not popular and are not rich by man's standards, but are rich in spirit and in truth. As a result of the true, unpopular, politically incorrect, strange doctrine, these true believers go forth prophesying and are hated, reviled, mocked and scoffed, and flat out rejected by the masses of those in Babylon. This is because Satan's children in Babylon think they are the true believers as they go forth with nothing but vain traditions of men that only deceptively replace the true words of our Creator. Does that make sense so far?
Brother Z,
Yes.
what I'm reading here, what you're showing right now is all confirmation. It's all confirmation what y'all have showed me.
Good.
And
Good. Yes.
It's
So
great.
that's what we want for these things to resonate and make sure that we have the understanding.
right,
You know,
right,
many of us
right.
have had the understanding for a long period of time. Some may be just getting the understanding, or some may have had the understanding for, 5 years, a year, things of that nature. But we know, especially for those that will be listening, that are a part of this session that will be listening to the playback, people are coming into this understanding at this day and time, more so than some of us that may have had this understanding for longer periods of time. So I want to make sure that we are all on the same page and understand these things and how the Most High operates. All right, because this is setting the tone for what the expectations are for the signs that follow all true believers. All right. Good. And I'm glad it confirms what you already know, Kenneth. That's a great thing.
Yes.
All right. Number three, it will be the true believers that go forth as our Creator's true servants by way of possessing the key of David. This means that they typify being a part of the Church of Philadelphia or the Church of Smyrna, where they, A, know the truth concerning who the true Jews or Yahudim are from the impostor Jews, which are the Orthodox or Ashkenazis, and stands clear of this deception. B, they don't deny the truth pertaining to the Creator's true name, and so are not deceived into going forth into the name of polluted idols and images, thinking it's the true Creator. And C, they all walk in the spirit of the Mosaic law, which are righteous standards for living the Creator has established for all his covenant people that serve and love him. Without possessing the Ruach HaKodesh or Holy Spirit, then one cannot walk in the spirit of the law, and so won't be able to understand the critically important spiritual aspect of the law. They won't be able to properly apply the law or Torah into their life to be able to realistically maintain the covenant law. Does that make sense?
Yes.
All right, good.
Yes, it does.
All right. So on these three major points indicated, this is more than enough for a pure-hearted, humble person to make a self-assessment to truly comprehend for himself which side of the fence is he on, which we discussed the other day in the lesson. Which side of the fence are you on? If he has made a correct self-assessment, then he would also be aware of the following biblical information that will expose those who are really worshiping in Mystery Babylon, thereby being fully bamboozled. It's this truth that will only be avoided and rejected by all of Satan's children, since it exposes them and they don't want to be exposed. It's this truth that will clearly show that although the Creator says we are to worship him in spirit and in truth, they go forward blindly paying this critically important aspect of the scriptures no attention, as they assume they are doing this when in essence they simply are not. To worship the Creator in spirit and in truth, or Ruach and Amet, means that if one is a true believer, then he would go in the power of Yahuah, thereby having all these spiritual signs following him as per Mark 16:15 through 18, as here indicated. Verse 15 says, and he, Messiah Yahusha, said unto them, go you into all the world and preach the gospel to every creature. Verse 16, he that believeth and is baptized shall be saved, but he that believeth not shall be damned. Verse 17, and these signs shall follow them that believe. A, in my name, and what is his name? That's a question I'm asking you guys. What is his name?
Yahusha.
Right,
Yahusha.
Yahusha. Right. Shall they cast out devils? They shall speak with new tongues. They shall take up serpents. Indeed, if they drink any deadly thing, it shall not hurt them. And E, they shall lay hands on the sick and they shall recover. That's the signs that have to follow all true believers. If you do not possess these signs, the scriptures declare that you are not a true believer. Do you guys agree or disagree?
Yes. Yes. Yes.
Right.
Yes, sir.
All right. So number two, have you properly understood these signs that follow all true believers? Now, here's the issue. These passages have been in the scriptures for over 2,000 years, and therefore they are not going anywhere. In the verses, Mashiach or Messiah Yahusha clearly says if one is a true believer, then these signs must follow them. In other words, you can know if one is a true believer if they are able to manifest these signs. However, the converse of this is also true. If you are claiming to be a true believer and you don't manifest these signs, then according to his holy words by sound doctrine, then you are simply not a true believer, regardless of what you deny or fix your mouth to say to the contrary. And that's how Jay would talk. That fix your mouth stuff came from Jay. It's all the simple. It's all that simple. And one with a pure heart and a humble spirit will hear this truth and righteously deal with it and not try to avoid, run from, or ignore it. All right. In the scriptures, we are told to try the spirit by the spirit, because every spirit is not of Elohim, as people know as God. 1 John 4:1. In other words, we are to test the claims of they that proclaim to be true believers. Well, here's just another test. All you must do is ask a person this question: if you are a true believer, do the signs of Mark 16:15-18. Do they follow you? Now, this is a straightforward, simple, non-contradictory, fair question. Either the answer or response to the question should be yes, or it should be no. If you answer no, then you should know for yourself that the scriptures are declaring you are not a true believer. Now, if you answer yes, then you will have to certify your claim by showing or manifesting your works. Does that make sense to you guys?
Very
Yes.
much.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
All right. So, but the fact is that when asked this question, most people will know in their heart that they do not have these signs following them. So their approach to the question will certify they all have a wicked heart, as they will tend to turn away from, ignore, or run away from the question, thereby not directly, faithfully, and lovingly deal with the full aspect of the scriptures. Yet they claim to love the Creator and his word. It's nothing but a case of total hypocrisy. Knowing that they must be accountable for their position, they will claim they do have the signs for following them, as they now go on a scriptural journey to outright twist the text instead of just being honest. For example, they will come up with false or private interpretations of these texts that will say, one, well, those signs were for the apostles and are not for us today, thinking that these signs were physical. Or two, you have to understand that Messiah left the church with gifts and are not all with gifts, and not all believers have these same gifts. So these signs are not associated with all believers, but is included in the overall body. That's the perspective and understanding that some people will try to say and have said. So upon hearing these responses, the ball is now in your court to truly analyze and assess the validity of the responses you were just given. Did they respond to you with the truth by sound doctrine, or did they respond to you with a subtle twist, thereby undoing what is really there? With both responses, they only reflect the exact opposite of what the text is really saying. The first response only attributes the text to be valid for 1 century of time, thereby excluding all true believers thereafterwards. This is just a twisted lie from someone who is guilty, as he knows these signs do not follow him to any degree, as will be shown. The second response addresses gifts in 1 Corinthians 12:1-12, and not signs. Two totally different biblical topics altogether. So this subtle twist serves as the leaven that causes many to be terribly snared if they allow their minds to receive it. Again, gifts and signs are two totally different biblical topics. By mixing and twisting the two appears to answer the question, but it simply does not, and therefore this false response only brings forth the opposite of the real biblical truth. All right. So do we understand that the signs and gifts are not the same?
Yes.
All right.
Yes, but they try to say that what was is how you know that you're not to be. Meaning that everybody don't have the same gift.
Mm-hmm.
But they twist that as far as
The signs that they should have.
yeah.
Right. Exactly. Exactly. So the overall conclusion of the matter is if a professed believer, especially a proposed leader or shepherd, does not have these signs, not gifts, following them, then they just are not a true believer. It's really just that simple. Having told a false believer this truth, obviously the next thing they're going to do is say, so all of those signs follow after you. Our response is yes, absolutely. If I am a true believer, then according to the Messiah, Mashiach, Yahusha's words, these signs have to follow me. Having now said that the signs do follow us, we will have to be ready and willing to prove the manifest of our works. This proof is then provided as follows. We will go forward to explain to them that the trap they've all initially fallen for that caused them to come up with their twists and lies and outright denial of the scriptures they were reading is because they have unwisely remained being carnal. By interpreting this critically important, foundationally based aspect of the scriptures to formulate a doctrine of the matter from a physical or natural perspective only means one thing. They all missed the whole spiritual point of what Messiah was telling his disciples. The same truth he is telling his true disciples even to this day. The truth is to be totally understood from a spiritual perspective, as successfully accomplished by the true believers that go forth worshiping their Creator in spirit and in truth, as stated in John 4:22 through 24. When these texts are elevated to a spiritual level and not left at the initial natural or carnal level, then one with the spiritual eyes to see and the spiritual ears to hear unto complete understanding will then know the truth of the matter. These are the signs that do follow all believers, not just during the first century, and are not just prevalent with some believers. As the scriptures declare, these signs are manifested in all true believers. So let's go forward to now bring forth the spiritual understanding of these same texts that have only served as a stumbling block, all according to plan, to assist the true believers in clearly identifying Satan's servants who are all transformed as angels of light. These are they that lack sound spiritual vision that is required to worship a spirit God in the manner he requires, in spirit and in truth. Number 3, the proper interpretation of the signs that follow all believers. If one truly knows the King and Savior of Israel, the one and true Creator who hides himself in the pages of the Holy Scriptures, Isaiah 64:7 and John 5:39, then one has to realize that just as he hides himself, he also hides his truth. Most people in Babylon simply will not believe this truth, even though it is documented all throughout the pages of the Holy Bible. Why was it that Messiah spoke in parables? Matthew 13:10 through 17. He clearly states, because it's given unto you to know the mysteries, secrets, and the kingdom established from the foundations of the world, but it is not given unto, quote unquote, them. A pure-hearted, humble person is going to deal with these verses righteously and faithfully. It's clear that the Creator's truth is for some, and it is not for others. Matthew 11:25, Matthew 13:17, and Amos 3:7. By dealing directly with this biblical truth, he who is wise will merely pray and hope the secrets were meant for his understanding, thereby making him a part of you and not a part of quote unquote them. It's the secret like this hidden, it's the secrets like this hidden in Mark 16:15 through 18 that are meant for the yous and not for the thems. So here we see two different sides of the fence again. We see the two different worlds and how they collide, as we talked about in other lessons. It's the yous, without question, that Mashiach Messiah appoints to understand the hidden spiritual truths of these spiritual signs given below, which are Hebrew idioms and metaphors that serve as snares, traps, and stumbling blocks unto the disobedient and the wicked, they whom this truth has not been given to know. It's the yous that will fully understand these spiritual signs on a spiritual level, while the thems, having been snared, will understand them physically or naturally unto their own hurt, shame, and spiritual destruction. Is that making sense to you guys?
Yes.
All right.
Yes.
All right. So number one, in Messiah's name, they will cast out devils. Firstly, one is to go forth with the gospel in Mashiach or Messiah's name, his true name, Yahusha. Accepting a misnomer in place of his name will not cut it. So many in Babylon fail right at this point. To cast out devils merely means that one can cast out or remove from one's mind the false teachings given unto them by the devil's servant that makes void the creator's truth. When one effectively teaches one to turn away from pagan Sunday worship back to the Sabbath, then he's cast out a devil. An act that will only be beneficial to one that has accepted the one true biblical Hebrew Israelite Messiah Yahusha, and not one of the many imposters or frauds set up to take his place. All that follow the true Mashiach or Yahusha can accomplish this task. This is one of the many ways that a devil is cast out in Yahusha's name. So I want to raise a question here. What are some other ways that one can cast out devils in Yahusha's name?
With prayer, with fasting, and some things just take time. You know, the more you spend time with the person and allow them to understand, you know what I mean? And this is the part of being patient, long-suffering, you know what I'm saying? Until that person gets it, because Messiah was saying some things takes time, you know? So we know that people aren't going to get it right away. You know, after being in Christianity or another belief for many years, people have been indoctrinated to what they've been taught. So that's the part of us, you know, being wise at, you know, giving them information little by little, giving them the milk first, which allows them to absorb that before we can give them the meat. Because if we give them meat first, that'll turn them off. They're not ready for that. So, you know, long suffering and time definitely are ways that we can utilize to get this truth to them, as Messiah was saying.
And
Okay. Any other ways?
Yes, I agree with brother Quest. Also, one of the another thing that got to happen to someone, and it happened to me. He had to call me. He had to do something.
Come
to
out.
You have to do something to you. no man can come unless Yah draw.
Mhm.
And
Right.
I don't care where you at or what you in. If he don't draw you, touch your heart and touch your mind, and you can preach to folk, you can teach to folk, you can holler at them, and you can try to cast stuff out of them. But if y'all never touch the heart and touch the mind and open up their understanding to draw them to it, they will never come. They will never come. And very true, devils are cast out by the name of Yahusha.
Mhm.
I remember when the son of Sceva, they knew of Yahusha, but they didn't know him.
Mhm. Exactly.
The difference between knowing him and knowing of him. And one thing about it, the devil, Hasatan, he know what you got. He knew what you made of. And he could see that these sons of Sceva didn't have nothing, but definitely you got to be cast out
Exactly.
by the name of Yahusha. Yes.
So, and you just hit on a point that we discussed prior to getting on the recording, and you may not have been on the call yet, but I was talking about how many here are starting to learn the name of Yahuah and Yahusha, but what they don't know is the characteristics of Yahuah and Yahusha, because that changes under what they've been taught. Many under the name of Jehovah, under Jesus.
Right.
It's not
Right.
the same thing. So
Right.
you have to cast all
Right.
that. When you learn of the name, that's step number one. Now you have to learn and understanding him and his wisdom in Proverbs 4:7, so that you can have the understanding
Right.
of who he is. And it's not what you've been taught
Mhm.
in the auspice of everything that you've learned, and whether it's Christianity, Islam, Judaism, and all the other traditions of men. So the name is the beginning
Right.
of the learning, and we have to present ourselves as
Right.
babes to learn, and then to continuously cast out devils. And that's what that process is.
Right.
The casting out of devils is that learning process of everything that you've been taught and misguided and misunderstood to be cast out of you.
Now, brother Zeke,
Yes.
now before we lived in ignorance, before we lived in ignorance, and we done things that we was taught,
Mhm.
and the thing we just did not know.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Now, since he have opened our understanding, we got to live according to what we know. We can't go back.
Right.
Can't go back.
You
Right.
shouldn't go back.
Right.
You
Yeah,
have the,
right.
in and of
Right.
your own volition, you have the will. Whatever your
Right.
will is, that which you will do.
Exactly. Now, I remember when I think the scripture said that one time y'all winked at their ignorance.
Mhm.
So a
Mhm.
lot of people, because they don't know, are doing a lot of things in ignorance.
Mhm. As
And
we
you
all
go
did.
now, once you know, and he have opened your understanding, you're gonna be accountable.
Exactly.
You're gonna be accountable.
Mhm.
Exactly.
So people who know, now, like one time, hey, I was a Jesus freak.
Mhm.
I was a Jesus freak, you know, in the name of Jesus. I was, you know, in the name of Jesus. But
Mhm.
Yah knew that I was in ignorance.
Mhm.
But once I came out, I don't use the name Jesus anymore, because I know what his Messiah, the Messiah true name is. So I don't use that anymore. But because he opened my understanding.
Right. So, and that was the first step for you, right? When you learned that, you know, who you were serving is not
Yes.
who you thought you were serving, that became a problem for you.
Right. Right.
Is that accurate, Kenneth?
Yes.
Right. So when we understand that, then we are no longer going to allow ourselves to be deceived when we know that what we've been given, what we've fallen prey to was deception. Anyone
right.
who is of the spirit of our creator will not continue to allow themselves
Right,
to
right,
prey
right,
to something that is opposite of the very creator that they're seeking.
right.
Right. So
Right.
it is,
Right.
you know, it's one thing to be
Exactly.
deceived, but when you have that truth and understanding,
That's right.
and you continue to allow yourself to be deceived,
See
that's
that?
a
That's
problem.
it. That's the
Right.
problem.
Exactly.
Exactly.
So you continue to allow that devil to stay in you rather than casting out those devils.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense?
Yes, yes, yes.
Exactly.
All right.
It's just
So,
like
yeah.
I was sharing with my mom the other day. Like they are getting ready for what they call their memorial in the Jehovah Witnesses. And they're handing out this pamphlet that have this image of who they believe is Jesus Christ, their Messiah.
Mhm.
And I was just sharing with her the other day. I said, you know, the Bible teaches against this pamphlet that you're holding here, right? The Most High does not do graven images or idols of anything that is made in heaven above, the earth beneath, or the water that is under the earth. And I got total silence from her.
Mhm.
You know what I'm saying? The creator doesn't do these things at all. And I know that is a tough pill for people to swallow, you know? And it's just like they just want to stay in their ignorance, some of them,
Right,
by
right.
their, when you
Exactly.
examine their facial expressions, like, you know, although you're speaking the unadulterated truth, you know, it's like it just bounces off of them, or they pay no attention whatsoever to it as being authentic truth from the creator. You
Yes.
know, when someone brought things to my attention, I was like, oh, really? I never heard that. You know, let me look into it, or can you share more?
Right.
You
And
know,
that's
some
exactly
people don't even allow you that option.
right.
You
Exactly.
know,
And that's what Kathy and I were just speaking of earlier regarding this in this call as well, is that, you know, us being a stiff-necked people, what that entails. And that's what you just spoke to, Quest, being a stiff-necked person by not because the honest truth would have been a humble person would have said, you have a point there. You know what? I'm actually idolizing a graven image. You have an exact point. I don't want to do that. Tell me what else I need to know and do so that I don't fail my creator. That's what an honest person would do. A humble person
right.
would do. They will humble themselves. But a stiff-necked person will ignore it. They will look at you crazy and continue to do what they're doing.
Right. You know,
Exactly.
when the name was first revealed and the awakening began, at first I tried to stay in Christianity. That's all I knew, Christianity. But I started in Christian circles, you know, being a pastor, a bishop, in Christian circles, I started using the name Yahusha. And in meetings and in convention, and it began to grieve folks. It began to grieve folks. Matter of fact, I got kicked out of the organization because of the name Yahusha. It is that name that Hasatan hate. They hate that name. They don't hate the name Jesus. Everybody, the majority of Christians love the name Jesus. But it's the name Yahusha. He said that the nation will hate you because of that name.
Exactly.
And what happened, I began to get grieved in my spirit, grieved not the Ruach. When I had the name Jesus and people praying, I see them casting out in the name of Jesus. The name, and my spirit began to be grieved because I know the truth. So That's why I had to find like-minded and ask y'all to show me, ask y'all to lead and guide me, because all around me is Christianity.
Mm-hmm.
Lead and guide and show me and hook me with the right fellowship,
Mm-hmm.
with the right fellowship. Now, like today, what we eating is good meat.
Mm-hmm.
We eating good meat. This is meat that's nourishment for the soul. And this is what I've been looking for. And
Right.
God had answered my prayer and have caused to meet you brothers. And I thank y'all for that.
Yeah, you're welcome. I mean, that's what it's all about, to making sure, and the Most High is in control of this. So Yahusha
Yes.
knows what your needs are.
Right.
Your prayer has been answered.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? Because he, if he
Right.
didn't answer, then his word would come back void, because you asked in the
Hallelujah.
proper name and those prayers were answered.
Yes.
And that's the experience that we've gone through as well. Even through the long suffering, there are a lot of things that have transpired over the years, because this has been a several years journey for me, and having to be alone in the wilderness. And when I met up with, the brother Jay, and Jay founded, Quest, and we started coming together and things of that nature, it was a lonely path.
Yes.
In the church, and I was there too, in the Christian church for 40 years or more at that time, where you weren't lonely, because you were with a lot of like-minded devils. And I'm saying, that's what it was.
Yes.
And so we know that, especially within the Black church, it's a very big social event.
Right.
That's all coming together with all of the different things that happen within the realm of the services or whatever. It's a big social, it's the social, event for everyone to come to on the wrong day, at the wrong times, with the wrong information.
Right.
That's all it was, a social event. Again, stiff-necked people.
Wrong everything. Wrong everything.
Exactly. Serving false gods and idol images and all those things, but we can come together for those things. And we can come together for what spewed over the pulpit regarding the love of money, prosperity is now, and all the things that are contrary to what the scriptures declare. That's the stiff-necked people that won't come out of that.
Yes.
So yeah,
it's just like a circus.
It is a circus. It's a horrible event. And can you imagine, just like I've imagined, how the heavenly hosts feel watching us do that? Because this is not the first rodeo for our people doing this. We've done this in times past as well.
Yes.
And that's what's grieved their hearts and their spirits. And that's why we're living this out in this time in the plan of salvation. And as we came out then is when we're coming out now. But our job is to make sure that we speak this one truth and we cast out devils. And as Quest mentioned earlier, it is a process. It happens over time. And we're going to talk about that in where we are in time and why a lot of this is happening right now. Because, 100 years ago, you didn't hear the name Yahuah and Yahusha at all.
Right.
So, and the scripture declares who he is. He's Alpha and Omega, beginning and the end. So his name was there in the beginning. His name is there in the end. End of what? So, as we talked about in chart, and I don't want to get too off topic here, but I just feel a need to have to bring some of this in, is that, as we talked, regarding the lesson of chart E, the 3 earth ages and 3 world ages, we have to know when those earth ages and world ages begin and when they end. So all of these things are what the scriptures declare and shows us for those of us that have the eyes to see and the ears to hear. Now, I didn't learn any of that in Christianity. I can tell you that for sure.
Right.
It wasn't until I came out of her being Christianity and traditions of men that I could now seek my creator and learn of him. You know,
Mhm.
that's when the Ruach HaKodesh can now speak to my heart. It
Yeah.
could not speak to me in Christianity. There is no Holy Spirit in Christianity.
Mhm.
Although they say that.
It's an unholy spirit.
Right. It is
It's
a
an
very
unholy
unholy
spirit.
spirit that teaches you things that are contrary to our Creator. So we have to
Right.
understand all of those things. And when we understand those things, we can now cast out those devils.
Devils. Mhm.
You know, we cast them out in ourselves through one of the things that I wanted to, I was looking for, you know, regarding other ways to cast them out is through our studies. So as we learn of him, you
Right.
know, and be
Hallelujah.
obedient to his word, we cast out devils in ourselves.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then we cast them out in others. You know, it has to
That's a
begin.
fact.
It has to begin with you first to the individual, and then to outwardly to others. Because when you speak that which you know and understand, and you understand His righteousness, that now you can plant the seeds of righteousness upon others.
That's right.
Okay, so that's how we cast out the devils. When we plant those seeds of righteousness, as we learn and understand these things, we are now working for our Creator and laboring in His word and are able to cast out devils over periods of time.
And that's the manifestation of a tree that bears good fruit.
Exactly. Exactly. All right. So
But
number
yeah,
two.
to your point, Kenneth, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
I wanted to just share about Kenneth's point about when he started to use the name Yahusha. The scriptures declare that they will put you out of their synagogues when
Yeah,
you start having this truth.
Yeah.
Right. We're going
Go
to talk
ahead.
about
Go
that a
ahead,
little
man.
bit here too. We're going to talk about that here in this lesson.
Oh,
as well,
okay.
because that's
Okay.
exactly what
Okay.
happens. So yeah, let's
right.
get to that. So the second thing
I'm
that
getting ahead
happens,
of it.
yeah, no, it's all good. It all works together. Trust me.
Okay.
So number two, you know, they shall speak with new tongues. The new tongue here is that of being able to speak relatively, comprehending Messiah's spiritual language of the scriptures. By speaking in this new tongue, a true believer is now able to soundly understand the hidden truths of the mysteries, parables, prophecies, signs, wonders, miracles, and the many Hebrew euphemisms, metaphors, or idioms. He is now able to rightly divide and properly apply these aspects of the scriptures to spiritual life that will truly lead to both his salvation and deliverance all on time and in season, with this idiom being another critically important truth being hidden in the scriptures. Again, all that follow Yahusha can accomplish this task. So I want to add something else to, you know, because when we talk about new tongues, a lot of, and we taught on lessons regarding speaking in tongues and what that means and what this new tongue is that people haven't heard. And that's what this new tongue is. As you learned of Yahuah and Yahusha, that was a new tongue. You didn't know of Yahuah and Yahusha. You didn't know his characteristics and everything that he stood for. That's the new tongue. That's the spiritual language in context that we begin to learn his hidden secrets, his hidden manna that the scriptures talk about, his mysteries, his parables that are given to the yous and not to the thems. So it's the new tongue that now enables you and allows you to now learn, seek, and understand who he is. And every believer possesses these signs. Does that make sense?
Mhm.
All right.
It
Everybody here?
does.
All right, good. Y'all got quiet now. All right. So number three, they shall take up serpents. Now, on a spiritual level, to take up serpents means that a true believer is able, qualified, and prepared to deal with the lying or deceived false preachers and teachers, which are the snakes and serpents that are leading the flock astray. In other words, they can walk into any high place or spiritual whorehouse to expose the pastor therein, regardless of his popularity, degrees, and professed wisdom, as being none other than one of Satan's servants, playing his part of the role of the false prophet. Therefore, all true believers can expose his unsound and false doctrines. That's what taking up serpents are. So the lies that come out of people's mouths, the misguided and misunderstanding that are being taught, and I did this even when I was a Christian, in a Christian church, not knowing where it was leading me at the time. But at that time, I was basically Satan casting out Satan. But when I knew truth, I would speak the truth of the matter to someone else that's coming against that truth. Even as a Christian, I did that. But so that's as we are able to now, with the true signs of all believers, knowing the truth of the matter and who we serve, we're able to understand these things and take up serpents, no matter where we are. So if someone comes to us with this information, we can set them straight, whether they get on the right path or not. We know, and those serpents will not hinder us from moving forward with that which we know in Yahuah and Yahusha. So that's what taking up serpents means. All right. And then along with that is number 4, if they drink any deadly thing, it shall not hurt them. So upon taking on the serpents, false teachers, a true believer can be in the midst of false teachings, deadly things, because that's what kills us. That's what kills our spirit. And because he knows the truth, these damnable heresies will not hurt him as they are doing to others, sold out to the lies. Because we're no longer sold out to those lies. So those deadly things don't impact us. So now we can go into a church of Islam, we can go into a church of Christianity, know that they're speaking lies and speak against their lies, and the deadly things that they spew out at us does not hurt or harm us. Because we know the truth of our Creator, we know the truth of his word, and through our faith in him, he will deliver us from all of these things in this time of the end.
Exactly.
All right. So a true believer can discern truth from a lie, and therefore will not allow the deadly things to spiritually destroy his mind. Yet again, the Yahudim can successfully accomplish this task. So these are all of the signs that we have to be able to fulfill as the Yahudim of true believers. All right.
You know, it's so interesting when we point out these things like drinking deadly things automatically, because people's minds are so screwed up and not understanding that the Most High is a spirit and that his book is spiritual. You know what I'm saying? They automatically resort to that carnal thinking of, okay, go grab a bottle of liquid Drano and let me see you drink that.
Right.
And let me not see you die. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah.
Not understanding that it's about drinking false doctrine and false teachings. You know what I'm saying?
And that's where, and we've seen this, right? We've seen a lot of people die following after physically or naturally die, following after all these other false teachings that have them drinking, naturally deadly things and going to their natural death, right?
Right.
But we know that, because they were weak in spirit and did not know the truth of the matter, they followed after that which was carnal. And the same thing that's going on even in the churches today. They're following after carnal teachings, but yet what they don't know is that they're following spiritual deadly things and drinking spiritual deadly things, and they're consuming it, which is killing their spirit. And they don't realize that. So, that's the
I've seen a Christian pastor.
Go ahead.
I'm sorry. Go ahead. I was going to say, because it's all about understanding, right?
Right.
I saw a video where this Christian pastor had these snakes brought into the pulpit.
Right. Exactly.
And he was sitting there trying to grab the snake. The snake bit him multiple times. And he's still professing the name of Jesus Christ. And you could just see his facial expression. He's starting to sweat. He's starting to become faint. He's starting to faint. And you could see that's when the people knew that something was wrong. And they was like, you know what? We need to get the paramedics in here fast. You know, so,
He died.
you know, it's due to their lack of understanding of
Right.
how these things are written,
Right.
you know, by our spiritual creator, that man fell into that trap. You know what I mean?
And we see this all the time, because I've seen several of those as well, where these professed leaders and teachers will go get, you know, a bunch of poisonous snakes and try to handle them and prove that they are a shepherd of the flock by being able to fulfill Mark 16, 17, and, you know, through 18, 15, you know, through 18,
Mm-hmm.
which only comes to their demise spiritually and naturally sometimes, because they're killed by the poisonous snakes sometimes.
Exactly.
Not knowing these truths, and this goes to what we were speaking about earlier, it's the twisting of those things. So they don't want to let their congregation know that,
Right.
you know,
Right.
that I can't do those things. So these are the
Right.
antics that they will take on to, you know, hopefully allow to persuade their congregation that I can do these things that Mark 16 is talking about.
Right. Exactly.
That's how twisted they are.
Twisted
their
their minds up.
understanding.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's how they will not, you know, allow themselves to, you know, adhere to the word, to say that, no, I can't do that with natural poisonous snakes, but that's not what he's talking about anyway.
Mm-hmm.
So what he is speaking in reference to, this is how I'm able to handle serpents and drink deadly things.
Right.
And then also number 5, they shall lay hands on the sick and they shall recover. So to lay hands on the sick means that all true believers can continue to feed truth to those that are sick, spiritually dead, full of lies and leaven, from having received false doctrine. As we were in Christianity and all the other traditions of men, we were spiritually sick. We were spiritually dead. We were not of the spirit of Yahuah and Yahusha. He did not know us. We were not of his spirit. It wasn't until then we were baptized in his spirit that now we become spiritually aware and live a life through Yahuah and Yahusha, and now are awakened in our spirit of righteousness. Does that make sense?
Right.
Yes.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So the result of this nurturing of the once blind lost sheep will be that of the sheep will end up receiving his sight, being found, now becoming spiritually alive unto true salvation, which is what I was just speaking of. All right. So number 4 is properly applying the revealed truth of these signs. What we have here are 2 different perspectives of the same scriptural passage. The physical or natural perspective indicates that these things cannot be done today, or they refer to spiritual gifts and therefore cannot be accomplished by all true believers. The spiritual perspective reveals the hidden truth that exposes all the deceived liars, especially the so-called shepherds, that only twist the scriptures or runs from or faithfully dealing with them faithfully. Based on having the proper contextual understanding of these scriptural passages, the ball is in your court to determine for yourself which interpretation, if either, is correct. Be advised that just because someone may know the proper interpretation here is the spiritual perspective does not mean that they are still a true believer. In other words, they may have enough spiritual vision to clearly see this perspective is to be understood spiritually and not physically. However, they may not have enough spiritual vision, understanding, faith, and works to get themselves rooted on the right foundation, which is the solid rock. It was shown that one must do all things in Mashiach Yahusha's name. Now, what if they have taken this truth and planted it on top of a foundation where they are not calling upon the right Mashiach, Messiah, or not going forth with the key of David, as mentioned earlier? If this is the case, then they are still a part of Mystery Babylon, just merely teaching more truth than others therein, which makes them more spiritually dangerous than the deceived others. All right. So an example of that, you know, I've talked about this several times, but even in the Christian church, you know, they talk about, you know, honoring and worshiping our Creator in spirit and in truth. So that's not a new concept. It's not a new understanding, but who we were doing that in the Christian church made it more dangerous, because now you're spiritually, from a spiritual perspective, and in what you thought were truths are now worshiping these idol gods and images and all those things. And that's how dangerous it is when those teachers and preachers now utilize these things and also incorporate some other things that make it appear to be that this is the way that you should go. This is how you are to learn and be of this one true, from their mind, these truths, which makes them very spiritually dangerous, which is why it's so difficult for people to come out of Christianity today, because it appears to be on the surface level the right thing to do. That is how it's been able to propagate to over 2 or 3 billion people across the planet to now be a part of the Christian regime or Christian church. All right. So we have to understand all the damage that it has done. And it's not just the Christian church, it's the others as well. But the Christian church, which is the #1 church today, and will be the last of the unholy church as we usher in the kingdom, or as judgment comes in, usher in the kingdom on earth, it will be the last one that will do this damage the way that it has. All right?
Exactly.
So for true salvation to take place, a true believer will go into the trap doors of the many high places or spiritual whorehouses worldwide to prophesy, witness, or testify to this truth of the scriptures. When he asked the people therein, who amongst them truly possess these signs that will follow all true believers, referring to Mark 16, 15, 18, directing the question primarily at their pastor, what do you think will be the reaction of both the pastor and the sheep of his sheepfold? They will all initially be stunned because they know they are professing to be believers, and yet they realize these signs don't follow them, as they think the texts are to be understood from a physical or natural perspective, since they are all carnal or carnal-minded. So, as the sheep turn to the shepherd for some type of answer to the question, the shepherd begins to wrestle with the scriptures to save face. However, all they end up doing is merely twisting the scriptures, as shown earlier, to try to justify why none of them have these signs following them, as they attempt to explain to the sheep they are not in violation of the scriptures. And that's what we were speaking about earlier, when they start bringing in poisonous snakes and doing all these things to try to convince people of these things, to now show that they're not in violation of the scriptures. That's what they do. That's their attempt, their weak attempt at that. All right, so the spiritual reality of the matter simply says otherwise. Due to their personal biases and traditions of men, for their pastors and members, their church family, thereby showing no loyalty and respect for the word of Yahuah, the blind sheep will respond as follows. They will receive the lies, the leaven, spiritual poison, serving as deadly things, just prophesied to them by their blind shepherd, nothing but a white-walled in the tomb of dead man's bones. These are more Hebrew idioms stating that these false prophets truly lack spiritual vision. When the true witness now takes on the serpent, the lying pastor's leader or visionary, what do you believe is going to happen next? What do you believe is going to be the outcome of these events? In most cases, depending on where we are in time, the blind shepherd is not going to concede to the truth by humbling himself before the true witness that has exposed him before his sheepfold. If anything, they will claim, well, let's agree to disagree, meaning they do see you have a valid point in the argument you presented. They do this because they don't want to admit that they are wrong and are feeding their sheep nothing but leaven. Therefore, the truth just testified will simply just be rejected or dismissed as the spiritual whorehouse continues to go forth with deceived business as usual. Meanwhile, if the matter is pressed by the true witness because of his love for the sheep that are being terribly deceived, both the blind pastor and the blind sheep will turn against the true servant with spiritual poison and venom. By way of the vulgar things in the form of the statements that will be spewed out of their mouths toward the Creator's true servant and the truth he just testified to. These worshipers only prove that they are only deceived tares, as will be demonstrated at the time of judgment. So we see all of these things in various scriptural passages and biblical stories with Daniel, with Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego being in the fiery furnace. All of those things typify what we go through when we convert ourselves, or when we're converted into righteousness and having to endure all of these things. All right. So eventually, it will get to the point where the whorehouse's agenda would be simply silence the true witness at all costs. So they will either demand he or she or they shut up, or will threaten to put them out of their church or assembly or wherever they reside. They then proceed forth to falsely witness against their Creator's true servant, as they claim he is only being disruptive and divisive, having come into their church, not the Creator's church, to scatter the flock. But because the true witness will not succumb to the lies, he's being fed the deadly thing, serving as spiritual poison that cannot harm him, but is spiritually destroying all the others, he will not allow himself to be falsely silenced. When the situation escalates to this point, the blinded sheep in the whorehouse will be more than willing to agree to put the Creator's true servant out of their synagogue or temple. By doing so, these blind fools will have no idea that they have just murdered on a spiritual level, John 16, 1-4, and 1 John 3:15, one of the Creator's true servants or prophets, thinking that they've done a great job for Yahuah, which is not under the name of Yahuah, of course, thinking that they've done a great job for their quote unquote God. They blinded sheep, sheep and rejoiced that the accuser of their brethren has been disposed of. They can now comfortably go forth with their agenda, still being unknowingly deceived. Another fierce battle in this spiritual war of Armageddon will have occurred, where it will appear those in the whorehouse won the battle, having spiritually killed one of the Creator's true warriors, Ephesians 6:10-20. But in essence, by winning the spiritual battle, or so they think, by having silenced one of Yahuwah's elect, the whorehouse only continues to lose the spiritual war of the Creator's one truth versus all of Satan's servants damnable systematic lies. Again, this war of Armageddon is not a future war to come that will be on a physical level, resulting in massive worldwide physical destruction via physical bombs, earthquakes, bloodshed, gunfire, etc. It's been in place all the way back to the Garden of Eden once mankind turned against Yahuwah's righteousness and fell from grace unto wanting his own unrighteous ways. Yet again, thinking this war is a physical one to come only further substantiates that truly you are not a true believer, as evidenced by the fact that the signs that follow the Yahudim simply do not follow you. And if they do, then you don't have them situated on a solid foundation, the solid rock, Yahusha, via the key of David.
I know
So-
that's right.
So what has the true witness accomplished here? He has done his job as the servant of our creator, Yahuwah. He went into a spiritual whorehouse where all therein have not the signs following them that is attributable to all believers. He went with the purpose of planting seeds of truth that would take root in those therein that would realize that they are lost, having succumbed to a false prophet. He was willing to bear the reproach of the true creator and his real truth, knowing when he went therein, he would be put out, be talked about, lied on, called crazy, etc., all according to the terms of the salvation plan. By planting those seeds, he's done his job, thereby putting the potential lost others therein to at least be positioned to be delivered from being deceived, since none of them therein have enough spiritual vision to know the way of Yahuwah's truth that will bring them salvation. However, if one of Mashiach Yahusha's lost was really in there, then will Yahuwah via Yahusha is ready. However, if one of Mashiach Yahusha's lost was really in there, then when Yahuwah via Yahusha is ready, he will turn on their spiritual senses to let them know that the one that came before them was one of his true witnesses and servants of the Yahudim, and therefore their testimony was true. Now I want to insert something here. And Quest speaks about this all the time. Quest's testimony of when he met Jay is something that I think should be inserted right here, because he was questioning. I'll let you tell the story of when you were in certain rooms looking for your creator and you heard certain things coming from Jeremiah's mouth that now caused you to now understand that what you were learning was poisonous, venomous, deadly things, and someone came into that room and started teaching you something different.
Yes. And I saw how what the things that he spoke tried all of the people in the room's spirit, that they couldn't come against what he was saying. And as a result of it, I say, you know what, I got to come forward. I came forward to find out more, while others were trying to disrupt that situation where they were like, stay away from him. He's crazy. And meanwhile, the scriptures tells us that the things that the Messiah or his servants would speak would be a spiritual language. It's unfamiliar with what everyone else is being taught. And when he kept saying that we were duped, it's not going down like that. That's not how the kingdom is going to take place on the earth. I'm sorry, but y'all been duped. I was like, are you serious? He was like, yo, the way that y'all are reading those scriptures is not from a spiritual perspective. And I was like, I was like, I need to get to the bottom of this. And at first I kept my my stance. I said, you know what? Let me think about these things. And more, when I heard Jay in different rooms speaking, the language was still the same, regardless of whether I was in a Hebrew Israelite room, whether I was in, even though I don't believe in Christianity, I believe I had enough information at that time to expose the teachings of Christianity. Jay still spoke things that were at a higher level because he had the Ruach HaKodesh. And the more I kept hearing those things, it just allowed me to come forth. And, you know, once he told me that the truth is not found in any of these physical places of worship, and that it's out in the wilderness where you can find the Creator and his truth, as well as the Mashiach, that is when I began to understand, and I came forth out of the midst of that confusion.
How many people came forth with you?
None.
Exactly. So, you know, that's one of many instances. I'm sorry, is someone saying something? Okay. So no, that's one of many instances where we see, and of course, I've been through the same, even in my life and in sharing certain things with other people and being put out of churches and things of that nature, or even at home, or even in the streets, and even on YouTube videos. Of course, you know, you don't have to physically necessarily go into a physical building to do these things. We've done them in our everyday walk, which is what Mashiach of the first advent did as well. Did he go into the synagogues and things of that nature? Yes. But the synagogue is, of course, within their mind as well, before they even enter the building. So the synagogue of Satan, first to the spirit, then to the natural. They had to spiritually get you there before they built those buildings. They had to get you to understand those things before they manifested those buildings where they can now gather you to do those things. And the same thing applies for the kingdom on earth, as we spoke about earlier. First, the understanding in your spirit has to be there before the spirit, before the kingdom on earth is manifested through all people. Or, well, let me change that, because it's not all people. It'll be those that accept Yahuah and Yahusha as their personal and savior, and knowing that Yahuah and Yahusha are the living, true and living God. So again, it's not all people. It's not on the level of globalization, you know, where these government systems have been trying to go towards to have all people live in peace. He didn't come to bring peace, right? So he came. He came with his sword, his double-edged sword, for our salvation, for the redemption of sin. So he came to ensure that his plan of salvation is going to rid of the evil spirits that will be terminated here at this level, from the second heaven on down, that will never make it back to him in the third heaven. And that's what happens here on earth as it is in heaven. So we have to have those understandings of why we're going through some of the things that we go through by possessing the signs that follow all believers. And when we understand that, we know that these signs, of course, follows all the heavenly hosts that are in the third heaven today. That's why they rejoice when we come out of her, because they possess the same signs. They are of the same spirit. We are of their spirit. That's why they rejoice when we have come out and now are a part of them. Now they can speak to our hearts, they can prick our hearts, and they can ensure and provide us with the nurturing and the understanding, the wisdom and understanding to go forth to spread the word of the gospel of the righteousness of Yahuah, the Father of heavenly hosts.
Exactly.
All right. All right. Go ahead.
I was thinking when brother Quest was talking. One of the things that came upon me once. I learned about his name, and I learned about this newfound truth. The first people I wanted to express about this truth was the people that I love.
Exactly.
That was close to me, you know, that was close to me.
Mm-hmm.
I remember Yahusha said he came to his own received him not.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to tell my brothers, according to the flesh, my brothers and my sisters and my father and my mother, you know. And I'm thinking they're gonna accept this, you know. I said, y'all, I got scripture. I showed them about how there was no letter J in the beginning, and his name Jesus came up. It's a later development. And I'm thinking they're gonna accept this. But brothers, I'm gonna tell you, they rejected it all.
Mm-hmm.
They rejected it all. And I found myself being an outcast among my family.
Of course.
Being an outcast among my family because of this. But he said, this would happen. He said,
Exactly.
He said
Exactly.
it would happen. So when you have all these signs following you about what he said was going to happen, then you must have the right name.
Exactly. So
Mhm.
you're following the same path, and Quest and I and others and Jay and everyone else has gone through the same thing.
Right.
It's no different. I'm sitting in the house right now with Christian believers downstairs right now. You know, that's what they believe. They still follow Christianity, even though many years ago I started the process, and I would get frustrated and upset, but I had to realize that this is where they are in their spiritual journey.
Right.
But it doesn't stop me, you know, from going forth with that which I know, because I'm responsible for my salvation and for righteousness.
Exactly.
So, and this is where the Most High speaks all throughout his word too, that, you know, and this is where people get caught up into their carnal families or their DNA from their biological families and will not follow righteousness for righteousness' name's sake. That's a hard thing for many people to do because their families have a stronghold on their spirit.
Right.
Where for me and for Jay and for Quest and others, their families don't serve as a stronghold for for us. The Most High got a stronghold on us.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
And it's about our spirit, because these carnal bodies are going to pass away and our spirit will reside with him once again in the heavens. Now, will theirs? That's remain to be seen. And it's their spirit that now has to be elevated to this understanding, and it may happen during this time of judgment or fairly thereafter, or it may not happen. And that's where we have to understand that you may be living with some devils in your house that may not make it back to your creator. And that's the hard to endure truth.
Exactly. That's the hard to endure truth.
It is.
Let me ask the class this here. Now, is there a time when you have talked, you have witnessed, you have prayed, and asked y'all to call them, to save them, to deliver them, and seem like the more you do it, the worse they get?
Oh yeah, that's part of the spiritual warfare.
Is there a time? Is there a time when Yah would tell you to wipe the dust off your feet?
Definitely.
Oh yeah.
That's the question.
Yeah, definitely. But let's take that. I'm about to finish this up with the conclusion of the matter, and we're going to talk more about that, because yes, I'm sure we all have stories regarding that that we can definitely share and touch on as well. So, but yeah, the mere fact that you're going through those things let us know who you are in the spirit. because we're all part of the same thing. We've all gone through those same things and are still going through those same things. All right. So let's finish up here at number 5, the conclusion of the matter. From the information provided, we have proven that if anyone is claiming to be a true believer and really is not worshiping our true creator, Yahuah, in spirit and in truth, then they are only making false claims, thereby deceiving themselves as well as others that receive him or his teachings. Such is the case with everyone operating within the camp, all worshiping in temples made with the hands of men, all being taken out by the abomination that is leaving them all desolate, without the spiritual knowledge of truth, without true salvation. So this teaching is a foundational lesson that must be fully understood and received in order to go forward to learn the real truth of the Holy Scriptures, as the Creator continues to hide his truth from them, but continues to reveal it unto the obedient covenant keeping Jews. It will be the Jews that will be fully prepared to truly deliver themselves from this untoward generation. Acts 2:40. The Jews will be the ones diligently seeking the scriptures to be able to soundly understand the parables, prophecies, mysteries, etc., all the spiritual language via the Hebrew idioms, euphemisms, and metaphors that will unseal and reveal to their understanding the Creator's Yahuah's truth. Having properly done their homework over the years unto obedience, the Jews will be ready to take on their final exam pertaining to the book of Revelation that is full of Hebrew idioms, euphemisms, and metaphors used throughout the scriptures by all other Hebrew prophets and apostles. It's the unsealing and revealing of this knowledge unto your understanding by sound doctrine that is truly going to make you free. At the end of the day, if you have the signs following you that follow all true believers, then you will be prepared to pass your final exam. Simply try your own spirit. If you can handle the following Hebrew idioms, euphemisms, and metaphors taken from the book of Revelations, thus understanding the spiritual perspective hidden therein, and not the physical or natural perspective, which is only a trap, then you are truly kingdom bound. But remember, once you arrive at these spiritual truths, then you must be certain that they are situated on the totality of the Creator's solid foundation. If not, then you will only be exposed in the end as having been a kingdom clown, nothing but a tear. All right, so here are some of the Hebrew idioms and metaphors found in the book of Revelation. And we know that there's many others all throughout without the 66 books, but to understand and identify the two witnesses, the beast and the false prophets, mystery Babylon, Babylon the Great, the mark of the beast in the forehead and right hand, 666, buying and selling, the third part, fire and brimstone, the man-child caught up to the throne of Elohim, 24 elders, 144,000, Church of Philadelphia, Church of Smyrna, 1,260 days, 42 months, timed and half a time in 3.5 days, killing of the two witnesses, come up hither, Satan has deceived the whole world, they came out of great tribulation, in the spirit on Yahuah's day, reigned and ruled for 1,000 years, the second death, fled into the wilderness, stars falling from heaven, scorpions and locusts, and seeking death for 5 months, but won't find it. One must be honest with themselves. Have you passed your test? Do you have relatively sound understanding of these metaphors, allegories, parables, and idioms, and are able to properly apply them? Or have you fallen for the trap of thinking all of this is natural and physical? Or have you totally disregarded the book of Revelation altogether after being warned that we are to live by every word that comes out of Yahuwah's mouth. We'll leave the final assessment of these matters up to you. So,
Selah.
Selah, exactly. So that concludes our lesson on the signs that follows all true believers. It's up to each and every one of us to understand and identify by putting all of this information out there. Everyone that partakes of this lesson is now in the know, in the knowledge, within the proper spiritual context of what the scriptures are saying. What you do at this point is on your own volition and your own will that either affords you the opportunity to be with your creator and of the body of Yahusha and Yahuah, or will afford you the misfortune and opportunity to abide with Satan and his regime.
In other words,
That's the truth of the matter.
in other words, now you are accountable.
Exactly. Well, we were always accountable. Now that
Exactly.
we've heard this word,
Yes.
you are even that much more accountable, because there is no excuse for you not to know. You cannot say that you did not, you were not addressed by this information. You may have shunned the information. You, just like we spoke about with those that have been thrown out, you know, whether it was a pastor or its parishioners, because they did not want to hear you. They wanted to hear the charismatic, you know, preachers getting before them and teaching them a prosperity doctrine and all of those things.
Yeah.
You now know. All right.
Hey, Kenneth, I wanted to ask a question.
Yes, go ahead.
When you came out, right, or when you started using the name Yahusha, was it more so the parishioners that was against it, or was it like the ones that had the leadership roles in the church?
Well, the parishioners, Yah had begun to open their understanding, because they, after class, they begin to ask me questions. I had to explain to them, and they begin to understand it. But those that rose up, they begin to go back and tell the leaders and those that was over me what I was teaching. And they had a meeting on me, you know, they called me to meeting. And they straight out told me, now some of them said they knew. And what happened, to accept that name, the cost was too high, because that church was built and a lot of money was coming in, because the name Jesus is big business. And he knew, but he told me, he said, you can't use that name around here. And you can't use the name around here. That's what he told me. He said, you can't use the name around here. And he knew it was the truth. He knew the name. He knew about the name. But using that name would cause, he felt by using that name would cause uproar in the church and in the organization, because they was all built on using the name Yahusha, Jesus. And by him, you know, by him being over me, and I told us, well, I won't be using that name anymore. And what I did, I left that part of the organization, and they had a meeting on me. Then they took my license. Over there, you had to have a license. You know, so they took my license, and so that's when I began to seek those of like-minded faith. Yes. But most, yes. Some of the parishioners, Yah had begun to open their understanding. but because of the leaders, they are the ones who really putting a stop to it because of the cost. It's for some folk, the cost is too high. And I lost, I lost a lot of things, but it was so much more I gained in revelation and in truth. Like Brother Zeke was saying, it was not until I came out that I could see more clear. I could see now I can see a lot clearer than I would when I was in it. A lot of time when you're in stuff, when you're in false doctrine, you can't see as clear. You got to come out in order to see more clear. And that's what happened to me. And this revelation that I'm receiving now that I didn't know in Christianity, it's exciting to me. It's exciting. Very seeing things we never seen before. It was already there, but we just didn't see it.
You sound just like our brother Jay's testimony in similar fashion. When he was telling us how he came out of the church at that time, him and some other parishioners that were a part of the group, they all had agreed that they were going to bring it to the church's attention, like the elders, and let them know that there were proselytes that were also a part of the true church, because some groups are teaching that the Gentiles can't be saved. When he stood his ground, he said he brought it out when he came to the church. He brought it out, and of course, the religious leadership didn't want to accept the fact that he was bringing truth from the scriptures. And all of the people who had agreed with him to present it to the church about what they had disagreed with, they backed out on him. They backed out. And he said it hurt him to his core.
I know, man. I know.
He said it hurt him dearly, and he was like, I'm standing my ground. The Bible is saying one thing, and yet the group I'm a part of is teaching something that's contrary.
Right.
And next thing you know, he said, the person who was the leader over the group said, well, we understand that there's some people who don't agree with what we're teaching. If you don't like it, then you can just go.
Yeah, I know.
He said when he came out of there, he was fuming. He said he was fuming. He said he started to cry tears.
I know. I done the same thing. Yeah.
He said when he came home, he said they lying. He said he started talking to the Most High. He was like, they lying on me. You know what I mean? I'm only reading what's in your word. And he said he begged the Most High for an answer. What happened? He said he came home and he threw his Bible. He said, I need you to show me an answer to what's happening, and I need it now. And he said, sure enough, he opened the Bible and it landed right on, I believe it was John 16. And as he started reading verses 1-4, how it explains that they will put you out of their synagogue.
Right. That's evidence.
That is when he knew that place, as was you heard in the lesson, is referred to as a spiritually polluted whorehouse because it's void of our Creator's truth. That is when he knew, oh my God, all of those people in there are deceived. That church is built on a false foundation. And it was from that point when he started running the race of knowing about his Creator in spirit and in truth.
And brother Quest,